Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thank you for waiting. So, I'm Ishan Survey from the Sulfur Society 2023 team, and I will be hosting today's session. Firstly, I would like to thank Amazon Future Engineers, without whose support this program would not have been possible. So, firstly, since this is a large Zoom room, we would request all participants to maintain decorum and keep themselves muted at all time. Please feel free to address any questions to us via chat
Hello.
and be muted at all times if possible. Solve for Society is an exciting opportunity for students to show their innovation and problem solving skills. This innovation challenge has been designed to give students like us a chance to identify and solve a real world problem. So, throughout this challenge, you will be starting a 1.5 month journey with us. And we hope that through this journey, you will constructively work in teams and develop unique ideas and solutions. So, the SFS 2023 team would like to support you with technical guidance and help you achieve your potential. That is why we have launched these design workshops, which will continue over the next 3 Saturdays. And at the end of today's session, we will also be telling you about the details about the phase one submissions. So I hope that everyone will stay around. This meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube for your reference. This year, we have chosen assistive technology for our theme, and we are glad to be supported in our endeavor with the Assistech Foundation, which is our knowledge partner. And today we also have the CEO of Assistive Foundation, Mr. Prateek Madhav, who's a Jaipur-born NIT and IIM graduate, a digital technology leader, and a social entrepreneur. So I would like to turn the stage now to him, and he will present to us.
Hello.
Good evening to all of you guys, and good to see so many participants interested in this topic. I also like to thank and congratulate the innovation story for this initiative. Definitely like to acknowledge Amazon Future Engineering for their kind support to this initiative. But before I go and share my thoughts briefly, I want to acknowledge some, a significant event for India that happened yesterday, the Chandrayaan 3 launch. And I think we should clap for ourselves, clap for the country. It's such a significant science based event that has happened, and the kind of milestone India has achieved is just phenomenal. Why I'm saying this to all of you guys is because imagine the complexity of such a mission. Do you guys know how far Moon is from Earth? It's lakhs of kilometers, and there are millions of parts, and the complex technology which is being used to do such a launch. I'm hoping all of you, or most of you, saw the video of it launching beautifully. Um, and why I want to bring this to to this forum is because all of you are budding scientists. People like you will make and contribute in such discoveries. Will also contribute, hopefully, to many more such missions, and that's the hope and the and something which I look forward to from all of you guys. Um, now, sorry. So with such a technologically complex mission, they are able to predict when this Chandrayaan 3 will land, right? Do you guys know when it will land? They have also released specific date and time in August. Now imagine, yeah. So I think somebody said 23rd August, and imagine such a complex piece of technology, but they're able to phenomenally predict at what time, what date, this will land on the moon. And hence, this is really the power of technology we are experiencing, right? Yeah. There's also a power of technology which all of us have experienced. The way we are shopping, the way we are commuting. I'm sure you guys are all watching Netflix and Prime and whatnot, Hotstar. While some of us who come from earlier generation used to wait for 30-minute Chitrahar if you ask your parents on every Wednesday. Yeah. The way we are traveling, Uber, Ola, I'm sure all of you use that as well. The way we are ordering food was never an option. And hence, if you see at the backbone of all this is technology innovation, isn't it? Obviously, there are a lot of startups who are fueling this whole innovation and driving the change, which has impacted all of us. Yeah. But what happens to 70 million people in India who are people with disability? If you see a life of a person with visual impairment, a person who has some other, to some extent blindness, he or she still get lost in all Indian cities. Yes, a person with speech and hearing impaired cannot still talk to you and me. A person on wheelchair does not have the accessibility to go freely on Indian roads. Um Indian roads as freely as you and I are able to do it. Yeah. A kid with autism has very less learning opportunities, and hence where I'm getting to is while the technology innovation is driving amazing change for all of us and for the not just in India but the entire world, there is a section of the society who is section of the society which is people with disabilities have no access to technology. Yeah, and hence we got to take up the task to build a lot of technologies, which is the assistive technology, for them. And I'm really hoping through this hackathon, you'll be able to innovate so many solutions which will be used for people with disabilities. Let me give you why, or another reason why it is very, very important. We are talking about a billion people with disabilities in this world, which means 1 in 7 in the world has some or the other kind of disabilities. You're also talking about it being a biggest market. So, and I'm also hoping when you innovate these solutions, you'll also think not just about the technical aspect, but you'll also think about the business aspect. All these people with disability in the world, uh, they have combined uh, spending power of US dollars 8 trillion, which is really the GDP of many nations, UK, Japan, Germany. Yeah, which means there is so much of opportunity. So what you're going to build through this hackathon is not just a piece of tech. It will make a perfect business sense. And if some of you wants to pursue it as a startup or as a solution which you want to release in the market, we at Assistive Foundation will be happy to help you guys through the innovation story. But I wish you good luck. I wish you all the best for developing these solutions. And again, many congratulations to all of you guys for being able to participate. Many congratulations to Innovation Story for conducting this. And I'm also joined by my colleagues from ATF, Shantosh, Chahat, Ruchi, Priyanka. So thanks to all of them, for coordinating and making this happen from our end. Ishan, back to you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you for all your insights, and I'm sure all our participants are inspired and ready to go with the innovation challenge. So, our next guest speaker is Pranav Savla, who is one of our peers and a high school student. He's passionate about computer science, and is the co-founder and CEO of Vidya Drishti and Phoenix Digital Media. Looking forward to hearing from you, Pranav.
Hi there. Good evening. I'm Pranav Savla, um, and I'm so glad to be here. Um, and it's quite special for me because I'm a student with visual impairment from the age that I was born, and I. I've always lived in this world of visual impairment, of a world of accommodations, trying to find solutions to problems that a lot of people might find mundane. Um, so it's been a different experience for me to figure out, every single problem that I've solved. Again, a quick intro about me. I am a student with a visual impairment, and while so I'll quickly just cover that. I'm a student with visual impairment studying in Bangalore, India. I'm 17, and I'm studying in the 11th grade right now. And apart from school, I got into computer science at the age of 12, and I have been in this space for 5 years now. I describe myself as a wanderer. I like to explore different technologies. And apart from that, I also describe myself as an advocate for change where change is required. So I find places that impact me, places that I feel like change should be made. And I try to advocate for change in those places. One of the places is, of course, assistive technology. And as Pratik mentioned, some beautiful statistics there, 70 million people or billion people in India, 70 million, I believe that is, and 1 billion in the entire world are persons with disabilities. And that represents a massive market. It's an $8 trillion market, as he mentioned. This market is actually bigger than a lot of markets that are around. So it is really a market that is being at the focal point, at the eye of my computer science hurricane, if you will, for the past few years. And it really hits home as I'm someone who uses assistive technology myself to navigate around and to do things. So it's something that I am using. And one of the things that I say as a developer is that I like to build technology that I can use. And so it's technology that's always hit home. And that's why I'm so glad to be talking about assistive technology to you guys. So I'll quickly define a bit of this technology, get into some boring theory for a few minutes here. What is assistive technology? Well, it's really just technology that helps you get something done, that assists you, as the word specifies. And yes, assistive technology is technology that is generally associated with helping someone with a temporary or a permanent disability, but really it can be anything. It can be technology that even helps you do something better and easier and assists you in achieving your goals and doing something. So whether that be live captions, where you can literally just read the text of a video rather than watching the video, you can read it on your phone, or read the text on a Zoom call or a Google Meet call, or whether that be being able to even send voice notes in conversations rather than typing, that is assistive technology. More specifically, if I were to speak from my angle as a visually impaired student, assistive technology means screen readers, basically technologies that speak out loud everything that's on my screen. So they use what's called text to speech, and they sort of they use text to speech to speak out everything that appears on my screen. There's also another thing called a braille display, which is another piece of assistive technology that presents everything that's on the display of my computer in braille. It's quite cool. It actually uses pins display all of this. So these are technologies that help me do work. They help me basically interface with all of my technology, all of the things I need to use on a daily basis, because I do use a computer every single day. I use a phone every single day, and they're integral to my life. Now, a few things that I'd like to mention as to why this is so important, other than the market, right? That is a very big aspect of why assistive technology is important. But other than that, it's also the fact that assistive technology, or building solutions that are what we call accessible or assistive, basically, is very important, just because you're allowing, you're removing what's called the burden of assimilation from the user. Now, what do I mean by the burden of assimilation? It sounds like a very convoluted phrase. What I mean is this: when you build technology that assists, that makes the process of doing something much easier, you are able to, you remove the burden of figuring out how to use a certain technology from the user, and you take that burden upon yourself. What do I mean by this? Let me give you a very simple example. If you put crossing signals that are accessible on the street, maybe with like a buzzer on them, or like a vibrating thing, or as they have it in Britain, a rotating cone, what you do is you remove the requirement for, say, a visually impaired person to listen for cars to stop before they cross, or to find that 5-second window, why, that they could use to
Pranav, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. Okay, hi.
Hi. Just for everybody's context, I am Chahat, head of partnerships at Assistive Foundation. Ideally, I was supposed to moderate this discussion, but something went wrong and I couldn't unmute myself. So, Pranav, so sorry for all the chaos that we landed you on at the last minute. As you were speaking, and I just was hearing about, whatever you were speaking about assistive technology and your life with it. I just wanted to sort of take a moment and understand from you more about, you know, uh, how this whole, like, I could see some chats around in the, by some of the attendees that, it just gets very difficult for people to have those empathy to understand about disability. So if you can throw some light on that how, as a person who is restricted by a particular senses, how empathy plays a valuable role there.
Thanks for bringing that actually up. That's a very important aspect, and it's something that I have been advocating for, again, for a long time. Empathy is of the absolute essence. And here, let me quickly define what I essentially mean by empathy in this context. Empathy doesn't mean feeling bad for the person with a disability. That is sympathy. Empathy, in this case, means understanding that these people, that people with a certain physical, mental, or cognitive disability are just the same as you without a temporary or permanent disability, and recognizing that they can do the same tasks as you can do. So that empathy is something that is hard to find, because it's just not something that a lot of people deal with every single day. What do I mean by this? Well, you'd see a lot of times people actually excluding persons with disabilities, say, from activities where they might be able to do the activity. What do I mean by this? Running is a very simple one for me. A lot of people think I cannot run because I cannot see. And so they presumptuously exclude me from running activities, which doesn't really make sense, and that ruins the empathy angle of it, because they are assuming the fact that I cannot run. And
Makes
the
sense. Um, can you
yes.
hear me? I think there's something wrong and it was lagging for me. So, while you're speaking about running, I just wanted to sort of bring context in this whole conversation, that just the idea, and I'm just thinking aloud on what you're saying, right? Just the idea of you joining us on this call by yourself and you did not need assistance says a lot,
Mhm.
that, like, you can navigate through technology freely because there are some available assistance in the technology itself that's enabling you. So be it that, and I just wanted to highlight it for everyone that, like, I've been in touch with Pranav since a long time now. So I've seen him very active on Instagram, YouTube, and stuff like that, which you usually won't think. Like, I mean, it's not something that would come out naturally to you if I say that he's a blind person. So, just this idea of broadening horizons, and Pranav, by saying that, I just wanted to request you to highlight what is like your day with technology like. I mean, what are the technologies that you use and how it helps you navigate things better?
That's an interesting question, because it does play a massive role in my day-to-day activities. I'm gonna highlight a few, and the most basic one is the cane. Now, what is that? No, it is not a torture device, but it rather is a stick that helps me navigate my environment by hitting basically anything that may be in my way and giving me signals of things that may be in my way. I use an extension at times called a smart cane, which is essentially a module on top of the cane that vibrates when I get closer to certain objects. I also tend to use my mobile device a lot, because what happens is I cannot read text, but I still want to I still want to be able to achieve a lot of things, and I want to do things normally. For example, uh, working in the kitchen, or if I ever want to read a paper printed document that someone might hand me at school, because I'm still a school student. um, I use my phone, for example, and it has features that would read it. It's called OCR, or optical character recognition, which basically reads every single character out to me. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the most important assistive technology things that I use, or applications that I use, is what's called a screen reader, which just reads out everything on my screen. It's what I would call the bread and butter of how I use technology. The final one that I'd like to mention here is that I use a computer, and I use it in the same way that everyone else does, just with, as I said, a screen reader and optical character recognition on top of it. So what I wanted to highlight with this point is that there are a few technologies that I use, as I mentioned right now, but they are technologies that enable me to do the same tasks as you guys might. So as Chahat has mentioned, this screen reader technology, this optical character recognition, and even certain technologies to describe images and videos help me do things like edit videos for my YouTube channel, or code, because I do a lot of computer science work, or they help me to make music because I am a hobbyist musician. So they help me to achieve the same creative and professional tasks that anyone without using these technologies would.
That makes sense, Pranav. And I think on those lines, I just wanted to highlight, and as I'm looking at the gallery view, Ishan is there, and there's me, who all are wearing spectacles. And if I would ask, if I would remove my spectacles, and I'm not sure about Ishan, but if I'll remove my spectacles, I may not be able to see a lot of things that's going on here. I may not be able to read the chats. So, while we have taken a long way, and this is cool now, like with lens cards and other such startups coming into the place, the idea of using spectacles are not just restricted for anybody who is just not able to see clearly. It's like a fashion statement now. A lot of people, and as I can see that there's a person called Atharva who is using a filter. He is putting a spectacle sort of thing in his eyes. So it's a cool statement and a fashion statement. So while there are a lot of like transitions that has happened in the space of assistive technology, wherein some of the things are generalized and adopted by the masses as fashion statements or something that they can, just use all along. There are still things that take a lot of time for acceptance. And apart from like visual impairment, like if a person with autism or any other intellectual disability, if they zone out from conversations, it's not acceptable, right? Like we just think that, okay, what's up with this person? Why is that person not responding, or why are they suddenly not listening to us? So in all those cases, there are apps, there are solutions which can help that person calm down or possibly deal with the situations in much better manner. um so in that context, I wanted to sort of ask Pranav that, if you can just share how technology has been so far, and what are the future, magical elements of technology that you can see coming that would probably enhance your life much better, and what are the restrictions that you still face today? I mean, while there has been a lot of progress, and I feel that like a blind individual today can live life as independently as an able-bodied person, but then still there's a way to go, right? So what would be that thing that you look for in the future? And I'm sure as your like immense interest in technology and assistive technologies in specific, you would be aware of a lot of such innovations that are still in the pipeline and going in the country and the world altogether. So if you can just throw light on that, that like what the future holds for disabilities and in the space of assistive technology.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question again, because I actually am an optimist in some cases, but I'm also a realist. The future holds, I think one of the most important points for me is that the future holds, using artificial intelligence, the future holds, as you said, better acceptance. What I want to give an example of this that's already happened. 15 years ago, 20 years ago, you would have never thought of using live captioning tools as a person who didn't need them. And by need them, I mean as someone who couldn't hear, right? If you could hear, you would not use them. 15 years later, and I'm sure some of you may have had this experience, we use captioning and subtitles even when we're watching Netflix at home. So, or if we're listening to a podcast on the bus and we don't want to put in earphones. I use live captioning even today, even though I absolutely don't need it when I don't want others to hear what I'm listening to, right? Another example I want to highlight of this acceptance factor is actually a very one that hits much closer to home and something that's very personal. About 3 years ago, during the pandemic, one of my mentors, who I believe now is in her 60s, she was having trouble with her hand because her hand would start hurting using the mouse, right? As she was slightly growing on in years, but she still wanted to learn, she couldn't really use the mouse. So she actually went ahead, and she already had glasses, right? To see, she could see, but she needed glasses. And the interesting thing that she did is that she decided to learn how a screen reader worked when she absolutely did not need one. She decided to do it because it made her life easier. So that level of acceptance, and by the way, today she uses a screen reader completely on her Mac. That level of acceptance is something that I only see growing in the next few years. Some of my Some of my oldest friends can actually understand the speech spouted by my screen reader. I wish I could show it to you, but it's a lot what a lot of people think is gibberish. It's just really fast, right? That's one thing that I see improving in the future. The second optimistic point that I'd like to bring about that will come in the future is using AI and machine learning to improve these tools. What's going to happen, and it's already started happening. There's been an app called Be My Eyes, which is a wonderful initiative. In fact, you guys may want to get on it as well, because the idea behind it is that blind or visually impaired people like me can connect with sighted individuals on the app. So I register as a visually impaired person, and say Chahat would register as a person with vision, or any of you. It's completely free to do. And when I need assistance, I just call for a volunteer, and the first available volunteer would pick up. They'd be able to see through my camera and help me out. However, now they're using AI to be able to create a virtual volunteer, so that I don't have to wait for someone to pick up the call and try to navigate the logistics around that. Now they can just use AI to actually describe anything, and then I can ask it follow-up questions. This saves me so much time, because not only does it save me the waiting time of waiting for a volunteer, but it also saves me time for trying to help the volunteers see what I want them to see, because I have to move the camera around. And you got to remember that when you're looking at assistive technology, you want something that integrates as seamlessly as possible into a person's life, because it's one less workaround that they have to think about then if it works out. So I see AI and machine learning really improving any sort of assistive technology to make things accessible, whether that be making web pages more easy to read, making text automatically magnified, or one that Google has already started doing, which is using AI to notify a person with hard of hearing of any louder sounds in their environment around them, and telling them what the sound might be, or captioning speech just through a phone's microphone live. That is the second point of optimism that I see. And the third point of optimism is more a psychological, social thing than a technological innovation, which is, and this is something that is slowly happening already, is that I see accessibility being a thing that is known about, and being a thing that people have awareness about from much younger ages. As computer science students, as people in fact start learning about computer science from much younger ages, from teenage years or even before actually, I see that this knowledge actually is something that we're hoping, and actually I'm optimistic for, will be incorporated into their preliminary computer science knowledge. And what this does is 20 years down the line, or even 5-10 years down the line after learning, when they go to build their startup, they will keep accessibility in mind. Because you got to remember that when you're building technology that is assistive, that works, that is accessible, the best way you can do it is when you build it with assistive technology, with accessibility, and with helping or tapping into that disability market, as well as tapping into every other market at the core of your building process. Now, coming to your second point, Chahat, about some of the dark spots that I see, and there's mainly one or two actually. One of them is availability. I'll tell you a funny story. I recently got a Braille display from my school because someone gave it to them. And this was like a 20-year-old Braille display. But the price of this Braille display, even today, is listed at 1,28,000 rupees. And that's great for people who can pay for it. But then the vast majority, especially in India, the unfortunate truth is that the vast majority of people with disabilities in India can't pay that much for a Braille display. And this is true for a lot of technologies. Recently, I had to buy, this is something that I found absolutely outrageous. I had to buy a talking scientific calculator because I study in the IGCSE or A-level board. And when I went into the 9th grade, it was a requirement. And you got to remember that the model of this calculator without the talking feature in it was 2,500 Indian rupees. And I'll give you a second to imagine what the price of the calculator with talking features was that I paid. It
Does
was,
anybody want to use a chat to sort of throw numbers? We would like it
yeah,
to be interactive as well.
Chad, you may have to share these with me. I have
Yeah, I'll do
kept that
that.
off. Yeah.
And while we are kind of pausing as well, and thank you so much, Pranav. This was very inspirational to listen to. But just so that we don't flood chat with talking to each other. This is not a forum to talk to each other. So please ensure that you are keeping the chat clean, unless you have a question valid to what Pranav is talking about and what we are all here to learn from. So there is a question asked. We see some numbers. So thank you so much. But please don't talk to each other in the chat. If there is any action to be taken, the moderators will be taking it. So please don't reply to each other in the chat. Okay, just ask. Again, keep the questions limited to assistive technology. We don't want to keep moderating the chats. All right, but we got some numbers. Over to you, chat.
Yeah, thank you, Devki. Thank you for saying that. So Pranav, we're getting a lot of numbers. Somebody says 5,000, somebody is saying 70,000. Somebody is very specific saying 1,739. Not sure because it's lesser. We are still not in the world that would be so generous for people with disabilities, but yeah, that's the number. Somebody is saying 1 lakh and 8,000, 10,000 and all of that.
It wasn't
So
that
yeah,
high. It was 40,000 plus imports from the US, which I remember my dad saying when we ordered it. He's like, Pranav, I have never thought in the 40 something years of my life that I would pay this much for a calculator. And it's something that is so true, because you never think about paying that much for a calculator. There's another example. There's a graphing calculator that I need. The calculator itself is 15,000, but the talking one is 85. So, and it's not just price. And this has been a thing that's been around for years right now. And as the supply of chips, the supply of technology, the supply chains shorten, I see this problem of availability, of accessibility, of general availability being much greater and much harder. Now, you might say as a contradiction that Pranav, screen readers are available. If you may know, screen readers are available on even the cheapest Android phones. So that's not a problem. You can even get the cheapest Windows laptops and screen readers will be available. Yes, that's completely correct. But the problem is that many of even these screen readers, there's one called JAWS, which costs $270 for 3 years, which is a lot of money. The problem is that specialized accessibility solutions that are the best of the best are ones that are not available to everyone around. And as I said, this is not just a price thing. Most of these technologies are technologies that are only found in certain regions. I recently got a Braille smartwatch, actually not that recently, in 2021. And it was it was an amazing concept, and I still stick by that. But the problem is that this was only available in South Korea. And to import it around the world is an absolute pain. So I see availability being, I think, the main and also the biggest problem in the near or maybe even slightly less near future.
Oh, yeah, Pranav, that makes a lot of sense. And I think while you were sharing a lot about, your difficulties as a person with visual impairment, there's a whole different spectrum of, disabilities that exist. And I think in every disability, and while something that just stays with us is the fact that, like, for the things as simple as communication, or for something as simple as navigating, it could be indoor navigation as well, people are still struggling. So while we are doing a lot in terms of AIs and VIs and like different other things, I'm not very good with technologies, but there is still like a huge gap where technology, while it has an ability to help everyone, we are somewhere not looking at that angle very efficiently. So Pranav, I think I am also looking at the chat, and somebody has asked this question, that what are the disadvantage of assistive technologies? So I do understand the question is a little vague in its senses, but do you mind addressing it in some ways possible?
That's an interesting one. And to be very frank, I have thought about it, but the perennial thought process among people is that assistive technology has no disadvantages. It's wonderful, it's great. But it's still more than disadvantages, it has shortcomings, and it has things that it can't do. What I want to mention as an example is audio descriptions, right? Audio descriptions actually have, while they're wonderful to give me an access of what's going on screen, they can never be truly real. For example, I'll give you an example. I will mention this because I'm nearly 18. I am friends with a few people, and I am in a relationship, and the aspect of that is that I can never compliment the person I am in a relationship with on her looks, because no matter the description that I get, it is perennially always never capturing the real essence or the completeness of how she looks. This is true with anyone. I can't compliment a person, for example, on their looks. I also can never grasp the full extent of nature, because no matter what app I use to describe it, it never can give me that real aspect of color, of just the true serenity of what I'm looking at. And the problem with this is not the fact that I miss out on information. It is the fact that a lot of people, when they get this experience, it demotivates some people from trying to imagine such a scenery. It opens up imaginations for some, but then for the others that realize that it'll never match up, it removes that layer of imagination. It also can create pessimism in some cases. So that, I think, is one of the most important disadvantages, is the fact, and more than a disadvantage, it's actually something that we need to remember and acknowledge, that the unfortunate truth of reality and life is that for certain aspects, assistive technology can do so much. They can get just so close to the x-axis, but they can never touch. If you guys can imagine for a second a graph of, it's going to sound very mathematical and overly mathematical, but if you imagine a graph of 1 by x, right? The graph will always, it'll start and it'll move down, and it'll get very close to the x-axis, but it'll never touch the x-axis. In that scenario, in the same vein, certain assistive technologies can get you very close to the experience of someone who doesn't have to use it, but it can never emulate or simulate such an experience. So I think more than a disadvantage, it's something that we need to keep in mind and accept, that certain technology, certain things will be a different experience for someone using such assistive technology.
Yeah, Pranav, actually, that makes a lot of sense. And the point that you started with is the idea that while we talk, and me being part of Assistive Foundation, our work primarily revolves around assistive technologies. But there's also an angle to me, that is me being pursuing psychology. So when I look at things like that, I feel that what technology cannot do, like your empathy and like more acceptance of people can do. So while technology tries to bridge the gap, but the ultimate gap can be made more acceptable if people are in general more acceptable and have the essence of empathy. So I think any disadvantage that technology can come with can be very easily or very mindfully catered with having an understanding of disability and accepting people with disabilities, and sort of building that empathy towards them. So that's one of the things. And I think other than that, I can see people asking a lot of questions. So I'll probably club some of the questions that are possibly on the same lines. There's a general theme where people are really interested to know about the whole angle of artificial intelligence in the areas of assistive technology. So a couple of questions on that is how AI helps assistive technology, what are the disadvantages of AI-enabled voice readers and stuff like that. So do you mind throwing some lights on the whole, joint working of AIs and how it's helping assistive technologies?
Sure. This actually again hits home because I am big into artificial intelligence. And it's very important. As a developer, I am very excited for the future. The example that I gave earlier with the virtual volunteer feature in Be My Eyes, that holds true. That is such, I got to use it recently, and it is such a cool prospect because it removes a layer of friction that existed earlier. The other aspect, I think the overarching aspect rather of why we should get excited for AI in assistive technology is that it removes the barrier of this assistive technology being constant. What do I mean by this? Speech synthesizers are actually quite constant right now. They don't use AI. And so what happens is some of the pronunciations that need to be gotten right, they just don't get it. But artificial intelligence can help these speech synthesizers learn through patterns, learn through their previous mistakes using what's called reinforcement learning, and basically improve their intonation, their pronunciation of words. And I'll tell you why this is so important. It's not just a nitpick. It's actually something that could potentially improve a lot of working for some people, because sometimes the pronunciation of what a speech synthesizer says, and in most cases actually, is the pronunciation that we as individuals use, because we listen to, and by we, I mean people using speech synthesizers and screen readers. We listen to these things a lot every single day. I am in front of a computer 16 to 17 hours of a day on average, because that's where 99% of my work happens. And I listen to a speech synthesizer all the time. So all of the pronunciations that I use in my language, in my verbal language, are pronunciations that I get from speech synthesizers and the way that they speak. So having them improved would make my pronunciations more aligned with what is spoken around the world. The other aspect is in terms of recognizing text. Now, the funny thing is, even when we're in this digital age, a lot of people seem to be using text, printed documents or handwritten documents. And the problem with handwritten documents is that the font is not conserved. It's not the same. It varies. People's handwriting is different. Someone's handwriting might be pristine, while for someone else, you might as well have written it in native Chinese. So the problem that optical character recognition software, or basically software that allows me to read these documents, have generally had is discerning between handwriting. And so now AI is sort of helping that out, because it can learn the different nuances of handwriting. It can use, it can take text that may not be scanned as well, and it can make it clearer. It can fix certain grammatical errors that may have been accidentally made in the recognition process by the software. And the other thing that it can do is that it doesn't require. So 10 years ago, if I needed to use OCR on a document, on a paper document, I'd have to use some specialized equipment, or I'd have to position the camera really accurately. Now, as you might be able to imagine, for a visually impaired person, that's really hard, because I can't see the document. Now though, I can position the camera like a rookie, and AI will be able to clean up my image using algorithms for computational photography. Now, the disadvantage of using AI in assistive technology is, I think, a similar one to using AI basically everywhere. It's that when unregulated, AI collects a lot of data, or the training an AI model or an algorithm collects a lot of data, and this data, we're not sure where it goes. So it's less a problem of disability and more a problem of self-determination and rights. And you might realize that this is much bigger a problem in assistive technology. Think about it. When we give images of a room to images to virtual volunteer, in Be My Eyes, it learns from these images. So just imagine the number of images of random rooms, of objects, of people's faces that this technology would collect. And if unregulated, this could lead to a lack in privacy, which puts that burden of assimilation on the person using this technology to not use the technology because of a scare of privacy, and then to rely on more conventional, less accessible methods. The other aspect is bias. A lot of it's kind of funny. A lot of algorithms that are trained sometimes on image description are trained on very accurate descriptions, or even on certain demographics, which make the algorithms biased. So in some cases with erroneous data, the algorithm will just club it into an aspect where it's not. Say if it's trained on a male, but you give it a female with very short hair, sometimes it might recognize it as a male, and that's a big problem. It's really funny. There's an app called Seeing AI that uses AI to describe a lot of things. It's on iOS. I gave it a picture of my granddad, who for context is 74, but with a bald head and a shaved face. And it thought it was a 34-year-old young, happy man with a smile on his face, which I found absolutely funny, because that's absolutely not true. And if you looked at this man in person, you'd figure out that it's not true. So that, I think, is one of the biggest disadvantage. But overall, if I were to take a weighted average of the advantages and disadvantages, I would encourage you to be excited for the future of AI working, clubbing in together with assistive technology.
Yeah. Thank you, Pranav. Thank you for saying that. And just to add more on those lines, I think a particular name of the new trending thing, if I'll say, I know a lot of you will relate, is Chat GPT, right? A lot of people, and I think in all of your schools and like colleges and stuff like that, people are not very acceptable of the idea of Chat GPT. But then that itself has a lot of benefits on lives of anybody in general. So, for example, if somebody has dyslexia, which is like not able to like sort of process alphabets particularly in a standardized manner, then in those cases using something like chat gpt, which can correct your spelling errors, or which can help you write content in a proper manner and sort of like help you avoid those errors, it can come in very handy. So there are a lot of like such examples, and why I mentioned ChatGPT was because of its relevance to everybody now and like how famous it has gotten so far. So I mean, things are there which can be made like more. I mean, there are both pros and cons to technologies, and I think while we can use it for plagiarism and stuff like that, there's still like a group of people who would be severely benefited by using it. And on those lines, I also see a lot of other questions. And I just wanted to sort of digress and sort of highlight the whole point that while there are a lot of questions that you all are asking, right, there are people who, if they know about something, they just answer it. So isn't that the power of community or of, like helping others and having acceptance? Somebody is asking what is OCR, so somebody answered what is OCR and all of that. So this whole idea of helping each other, right? And just having that collectiveness towards addressing an issue or like sort of navigating around it is something that we would need. And I think a lot of you are asking how to solve this problem, what all can we do, and stuff like that. So in those cases, I think the best and the basic step that you all can do is basically share knowledge and have more acceptance. So, and I think this is a great example of that. And I think other questions that we have is something that I think we would be addressing more on the design thinking workshops, which is going to be the upcoming workshops on how to navigate around designing solutions for people with disabilities, and how to sort of understand the problem statements correctly and all of that. So I would request you all to wait for it. And Pranav, is there something that you would like to highlight for all these students in general, like, if they would want to take a path of, probably doing something on the areas of assistive technologies. Is there something that you would like to sort of give as a message and stuff like that?
Yes, thanks. There are a few things that I'd like to mention, and two of these, or actually all of these, will be rather less technical, or rather not technical at all, and completely psychological. The first one is there is no right answer to this. Assistive technology is a field that we're still figuring out today. We've gotten a lot ahead, but we still don't know. And I don't think there will ever be a right answer. So if you ever, but in that same vein, there's no wrong answer either. So it's more just how creative can you be with a solution? I remember actually kind of funnily 4 years ago, I had a physics teacher who wanted to explain ray diagrams to me. And she used wax and wires to explain this such a diagram. Similarly, when I wanted to do logic gates, we actually used a raised graph paper and pins to be able to do to be able to achieve like the different gates. So there is no wrong answer. The second one that I'd like to highlight to you guys is the importance of user feedback. Remember that assistive technology is going to make or break a certain user's experience. And thus, you want to make your users' lives as easy as possible. As I said earlier, assistive technology is about having the least amount of friction possible between technologies. It's about being something that I don't have to think about when I use. It's about being as easy as possible. So when you work on such technologies, remember that user feedback should be at the center of your core ethos and at the center of all of your design, all of your development, your deployment testing, every single process. User feedback is what's going to design or define your technology. And the more open you are to user feedback, the better your technology is adapted and the more tailored you can make it. And the third one that I want to bring to your attention is that in assistive technology, more than in any other field, it's okay to fail. What do I mean by this? There have been so many screen readers, right? And the thing is that when you fail at building a certain assistive technology solution, you take all of your learnings from this experience to your next project, even if that's not an assistive technology solution, and thus you can make that project more accessible. So it's okay to fail, and I'll tell you another thing. No one's gonna harp at you for failing. They're gonna harp at you for being anti-user friendly, yes, but they won't harp at you. They won't break down your door for failing. Failures sometimes build the best products that can exist. And I think Steve Jobs, even outside and inside the assistive tech space, is one of the best examples of this. So that's just the final one. Take user feedback. Remember that there is no wrong answer. Remember that there's only a creative answer. And remember that you can fail, and that's okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you, Pranav. And I think just one thing common to all you young generation kids, and I feel old to say this, but the idea is that you all are very gutsy, right? You and gutsy enough to sort of write anything on the chat. I can see somebody called Unreal Techno gutsy enough to like make facial expressions in a formal conversation and like entertain people. So why not use all this energy to do something nice for the world? You have a lot of power and much more resources. I don't see anything like this existing when I was a student that I could utilize. So, I mean, kudos to the whole team of TIS as well. Like, all these things are something that would enable you do something nice. So, utilize it to the best and sort of like let's just explore something beyond like just the fancy things and make this world more accessible for everyone. And I'm also seeing a lot of other questions which I would like to address probably just one-on-one altogether, if that's fine. So one question that has been asked commonly is can we create specific mobiles for people who can't see? So and I want to highlight a theme there, which is the idea of exclusion. So, and we at Assistive Foundation, we work with a lot of startups and help them accelerate their journey in this space. So, a lot of while working there, a lot of funny instances come wherein a person they made a solution, and all respect to them, and the idea of taking this forward. But the idea was basically to make a jacket for person who can't see, that a jacket that will simulate certain vibrations and stuff like that. And I think it was very funny and absurd altogether. But basically you can't certainly experiment with a person's life. So while you would do a lot with technology, you also have to understand that there are things that are beyond technology, which is the person's right to privacy, the person's right to be as normal as possible. So, like all these fancy things, sometimes we just go above and beyond and think that we'll do something altogether different, which is not inclusive. So, like, while there's an idea of assistive technology and enabling a person, there's also an idea of inclusion. That is how we can develop a technology and how we can enable them to be as inclusive as possible. So something on those lines that sort of comes with me. I mean, when I was a student, I attended a workshop where we were sort of thinking more about how we can make those basic games disability friendly. So, for example, if somebody has color blindness, that is an inability to see some sets of colors, how we can make Uno accessible for them. So I think a lot of you guys would be playing Uno and stuff like that, right? So if a person can't see color, how we can also create like a plain set of Uno without colors. But is that exclusive? I mean, like, does the person has to go around and find people who are blind and then play Uno with them? I mean, the idea has to be how they can be easily included in the society, and anybody and everybody who is playing that game can sort of, include that person altogether with them. So the idea is not to make something exclusive for them altogether, but how to enable something that's already existing and make it more user friendly for them. And there are a lot of products that exist in Pranav. I think you would be able to add better in that. And if you can sort of highlight a couple of names which you would have been using, which is good. And I think what I can think of is iPhones. They're primarily very accessible for people with disabilities, is what I've heard all throughout. Pranav, do you want to say a couple of other names or probably highlight how accessible they are and stuff like that?
Sure. I want to start with the point that you mentioned. A phone, for example. Now, I don't want to point at a certain idea, but I'm just taking it as an idea because I think it's a great example. A phone made specifically for someone who was visually impaired would solve a problem, but it would create a bigger problem. It would then mean that that person, even logistically speaking, has lesser choice of purchasing what they can purchase, right? And it would also be harder. Just think about it logistically, right? You'd have to build something from the ground up, tailor-made for someone who's visually impaired. How are you going to then provide the level of support, technically speaking, that they might need? It's so much easier just to build a software that works on technology that already exists. And in that sense, for example, as you said, the iPhone, or really any Apple device, or actually even an Android device. I use a OnePlus phone, and it is actually accessible. It uses speech to speak, as you might be able to hear.
Yes.
It uses speech to just tell me everything that's on my screen. It's really fast, but yes, that is the speech of my phone. And even other, for example, another piece of technology that's inclusive and that is also accessible is every Windows, or actually even better than that, every single MacBook that comes out. The reason for this is that every MacBook has a screen reader built in that can be activated with a keyboard shortcut as soon as the Mac is turned on, even before setup. So there's no help of a sighted person that's required. But at the same time, if I did want to hand my MacBook to a person with no visual impairment, I could do that. And these are not things that extend just to people without visual impairment. One example is magnifiers. Rather than buying a specific magnifier, I can use one that's on my phone. Or captioning devices. Rather than buying any module like a hearing aid or something, I can just use sound notifications, as I said earlier, that just tell me what sounds are around me. Or I can use live caption features on my phone that caption everything. The best example is a certain, it's not technology, but it's in line with your cards example. It's one that I want to mention that is something that I've been doing for a long time. There is a game that my family and certain friends and I, we play. It's called Phase 10. It is a card game that's really involved. I'm not going to go into the details right now, but if you do want to Google it, you can Google Phase 10. And the thing is that there are Braille cards available, but these are $20. Instead, what we do is we buy a normal pack of Phase 10 cards, and I spend 30 minutes writing over them in Braille. This means that I can buy cards that everyone else used, that everyone else is familiar with, and that also works for me just because I add this like tiny one line of Braille at the bottom of each and every card. So at the end of the day, what I'd like to say is when you're making change, experimentation is always great, but also remember two things. A, is it a problem that the problem that you're trying to solve, is it a problem that needs to be solved? Like, for example, for the phone, there actually are currently phones available for the visually impaired. They're meant specifically for people who maybe may not be that technologically well versed. Is it a problem that you're trying to solve though? As I said earlier, an Android phone, for someone who has even the slightest bit of technical know-how, more than like a senior citizen or something, an Android phone is available for as little as 3,000 Indian rupees or lesser. So do you really need to build something, use more resources that doesn't really solve a problem that existed? That's the first thing. And the second is, when you're thinking about experimentation, think about the repercussions that this may have. Now, even with creating technology that's inclusive, it does have repercussions. You can't build something that's super specialized. Android's the best example. Now, I'm talking about phones more because that's the space that I work in. Android is one of the best examples. I can build a screen reader for Android. In fact, there are screen readers available. There's a built-in one called TalkBack. But the problem is that it won't work with every single app. Then every app developer has to work on it on their own. And then how do you make the screen reader adaptable to every single piece of hardware that's available? Because there's so many choices for an Android device. So think about the repercussions of this. Is it going to create exclusion? Is it going to be suboptimal? And weigh in these trade-offs and think about which is the trade-off that you would like to take, which has the least. What we call in economics is opportunity cost, which has the least cost to the next best alternative.
Yeah, thank you, Pranav. I think that's a very elaborate answer, and it does help even me a lot to understand the whole landscape. Couple of questions floating on the lines, and I'm also mindful of the time. So, a couple of themes that I can understand is a lot of people have this basic confusion about disabilities itself. So I think somebody has asked how AI can help autism or personality disorders. So first, let me clarify that personality disorders are a whole different ball game altogether. They are not disabilities, but something that comes in the line of mental disorders or mental illnesses. And autism, by its nature, is an intellectual disability. So I think, I mean, this is a general like sort of offer to Devki and Ishan and all the team all together, that as a Cystic Foundation, we can share a lot of resources that can act as a reference for people to understand disabilities better. So I think that if you can circulate throughout the community, it would be much good, because while we have sessions that can sort of initiate that spark, or like and I'm very happy that people are asking those questions, because I do understand that coming from a non-disability oriented space, that could be something, and every question is a right question, right? It has helped people understand what it is not. So in all those cases, but like I think if we share a generalized resource, or sort of a repository of disability related knowledge, I think that would something that you can circulate, and it would help all the students understand things better. Also, I saw a text saying about the language friendliness of this whole workshop and the conversation that we had. So I do understand the whole point of, for somebody, this might come as a jargon. So what we can also do alongside that is to sort of give more like a retrospective view of certain words that we have used and provide it as a reference. And I think from next workshop onwards, we can also, like, that would also come handy, and people would be able to sort of focus more on the quality of things rather than understanding the jargons itself. And I think any other questions that somebody has? Oh, sorry, Vikya, say.
Just to kind of add on to that, Shahat. So basically, all the resources that Shahat mentioned, even highlights of everything that Pranav mentioned, we do want it to be in one single place. So where we are planning to post it is our Instagram. So because there is only so much we can continue to email you guys and let you know, right? So Instagram, it's easy to scroll if you're just following one account. So requesting everybody to just follow the Solve for Society, and we can share the Instagram link with you. We haven't done a good job. We have basically been waiting for the workshops to start before we kind of post, because we want to post content that actually matters. So going ahead, we kind of would want to devote our time to kind of adding these kind of snippets around and information nuggets on that page. So do follow us there, and we can take it from there on.
I'd also
thank you.
quickly, I'd quickly like to say that I'm always available for a chat personally as well. You can find me on LinkedIn, and you can search me up, and you should be able to find at least one way of contacting me. Outside this workshop, of course, I couldn't really answer everything here in the interests of time. But outside the workshop, I'm always available for a textual or verbal or even an in-person chat if that's your thing. So just if you have any questions, if you want to talk about an idea, if you just want to have a chat, I'm always open.
Thank you, Pranav. I think that means a lot. I can also see one question, and I think while we are talking, I would love to get more questions on these lines and sort of understand if there are anything that we can address specifically. There's also one question that is like, basically, are there areas where there's very limited work done within AT? So what I would like to do is probably answer it for a while, and then I'll hand it over to Pranav to add more. So with our work at Assistive Foundation, what we have realized, and we work with a whole spectrum of disabilities, right? From visual impairment to hearing impairment and all stuff like that, where the basic theme is assistive technology. So what in general is something that's more like identification through our experience is the fact that in the space of hearing impairment, that is like a disability where people have difficulties of hearing, have or cannot hear at all. I think that's the space where innovation is lacking. And it has its own scientific disability, scientific restrictions as well, because, and I don't want to go in detail because that would be too complicated in this scenario, but it's something that gets very difficult wherein like big giants like Microsoft and all of them are also struggling addressing this problem. So that's an area which is like very much unaddressed to some extent, but things are going, and we are hopeful that somewhere down the line, it would be much easier and like accessible to live with hearing impairment for any person with disabilities. Pranav, you wanna add something on that?
Well, I resonate with your point on the hearing impairment. That is a very important one. And right now, the only thing that we've been able to do significantly, other than like apps like Signable, is captions, right? And the second one that I want to mention is, again, coming from, I realize I talk a lot about visual impairment, but that's sort of the space that I have seen, no pun intended, from very close from a very close angle, right? One of the things that I have noticed is that navigation for someone with a visual impairment has always been something that we've tried to make solutions for using image descriptions and the like, smart canes, for example. But it's always been more traditional. You'd still have to use a cane to hit objects and figure out that there's something in the way. And so there's not been real progress in that field for the past 15, 20 years, other than minor, say, image descriptions and all that realistically don't really help. Because think about it, when you're navigating the streets, do you really want to hold up a phone up in the air like you're taking a picture and move it around, wave it around? the risk factor for that is so high. And glasses are there are glasses available that help you out, but they are very expensive. And so, in fact, but there is progress being done there. Google is building up certain technology, and I actually am personally working on a research paper to suggest a method of eliminating the use of a cane, and completely using technology to navigate. I won't share too many details here just because it's going to get very technical, and I don't want to make your brains explode. But happy to chat about it, as I said, later on, if that's something that interests you, or if you want to know more.
Great. Thank you, Pranav. I think that's a great idea. And a lot of people are asking ways to connect with you other than LinkedIn. So what I'll do is I'll probably drop Pranav's YouTube and Instagram links on the chat, if that would come handy for all of you. And I think, with the respect of time, I would like to sort of close this session from my end, and I will hand it over to Devki. But thank you so much, Pranav. And I think, while Devki does all the debriefing and, like, discussing more about the workshops, I just want to highlight that it's been a pleasure working with you and sort of, understanding more about your lives and the things that you have been doing. It's quite inspirational and intimidating at the same time because I think, while I look at you, I just feel that I don't think I'm utilizing all my senses to the fullest. The capacities that I can utilize. And I think, all the work that you've been doing is very inspirational and sort of, like, sets a benchmark for everybody of your age, and I think above and beyond that as well. So thank you so much for sharing everything that you have shared. And I think it does mean a lot. And I feel, while it may not resonate with some of you, but if I think we are able to at least impact or, like, use this information with any, like, 10% of you maybe, then I think we have done something meaningful itself. So thank you so much, Pranav. And I think now I'll hand it over to Devki to share further information.
Sure, thanks.
Repeating everything Chahat said, thank you so much, Pranav. This was an amazing session. I think I learned so much today. And I have to thank you for it. So over to you, Ishan. Just for all the participants, we'll just go over the rules of what the competition is about and what we are expecting as part of phase one. So we just have 1 month exactly till today. So the phase one is going to end on 15th August midnight. So we have just 1 month to go. So I hope you are inspired from today's session, and we expect a lot of good ideas and participation from all of you. Ishan will explain what exactly does phase one mean and what do you have to submit as part of it, but I wish everybody all the best. And please, over to you, Ishan. Yeah.
Firstly, I would like to thank Pranav and Chahat Miss. Like, I learned a lot as well throughout the conversations, and I feel that everyone must be energized and ready to go with the competition and our phase one submissions. So I'll be sharing my screen now with the guidelines, and yeah, I hope everyone can see my screen, and you'll see it right here. Next, you'll find Solve for Society in the bar here, and you can click on it. Then, as you can see right now, it said that phase one submissions will be open for acceptance, but after 29 July, a button will be available here, which you can click and use to upload your submissions. So moving on to the format of our submissions. So for a submission, we need a video from you and a document. So the video will firstly have an introduction of your team. Here you can talk about what makes you special. And next you can explain the problem you have chosen within assistive technology. Here we would also like to learn about why this problem is important for you and what personally connects you to that problem. Next, in brief, through the video, you can explain your proposed solution. We are also looking for an ideation document from you. This is just a technical document to give us details about your solution, and it will start off with a problem statement about the issue you have chosen. And next, you will have a detailed proposal of your solution. Here, you can include CAD diagrams of any kind, program snippets, or any prototype you might have developed. Next, you can talk about any challenges you expect or any hurdles towards implementation, if any. And the last bit you can talk about is your expected impact of your solution. So here you can quote experts, talk about statistics, but please quote all the sources that you use and avoid plagiarism and cite everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.